So the reason I tore this apart, I found this dust seal laying in the bottom when I was cleaning it up, so I figured we better go ahead and pull it apart and repack the bearings and see if we can pop this seal back in. It probably won't stay, but that's okay. It doesn't really need to be sealed since it's in a dry environment. But if you don't know, these seals just sit in a groove, so they pop right out. Well, I wasn't going to take this thing apart because I saw it run before we dismantled it, and it lifted a car and everything seemed fine, but I'm pretty glad that I did now. Check out that bearing. The outer race is cracked right in two. So, you know, if it breaks again in a second spot and the whole thing comes apart, we're going to have a real bad day. So we definitely need a new bearing. And now I'm wondering if I should take the other side back apart, which I've already put it back together, and use this one good seal out of this bearing instead of the one that I straightened. And also, I don't know if I really checked the other bearings for cracks. I checked them for wear, but it's got me kind of scared now. So I guess better safe than sorry. We might as well pull it back apart. Well, today is tomorrow, and we got our new bearing, care of McMaster Car. And I went ahead and popped the seals out and just jammed it full of grease. These things spin real slow, real low RPM. It probably only makes, I'd be surprised if it makes more than about 10 revolutions, you know, every time you go up and down with it. So more grease, more better. And we'll toss this busted one in the scrap bin. It's kind of a crappy design. And I've warned people about this before, like with, you see those machinery skates that people try to make where they just use, you know, ball bearings that run right on the concrete. You know, these bearings aren't made, you know, the outer race isn't made to be, you know, a point contact surface like a wheel. It's designed to be pressed into something that is more substantial. So the smaller diameter rollers that it has, those are specialty rollers that are made to have contact on the outside. You know, the outer race is substantially thicker, and like I said, they're designed for that point loading. But these are just regular deep groove ball bearings. They're not supposed to be used like this, and obviously you could end up with what we have here. So yeah, be careful everybody. Okay, I'm getting the columns leveled up right now, and I'm working by myself, so I'm just using some of these little wedges, and I'm not sure what the actual name for these is, but I've always heard them called feather wedges, and they're very, very handy. I use them for all kinds of stuff. And then I'm going to put some of these little plastic horseshoe shims underneath the bolt holes. So I got it pretty well where I want it now. I think we can live with that. Yeah, looks good. Well, let me catch you guys up a little bit. I'm having some trouble getting the thing lined up and squared up, so what I decided to do is just go ahead and set the column that's closest to the wall, and I measured from the wall to the leg so I can make sure that this leg of the system is parallel to the wall. And now I'm going to square it to the other column. I've got a piece of square steel tubing here that just runs between the two columns, and I'm using that to square everything up. So I just got my framing square here. It ought to be good enough for this job. So you see we're good and square at this corner. So I was using the square to set the kind of the front to back location of the other column. So down here at the other column you can see I'm pretty far out of square. So the back part of the leg is kind of toed out. So before I took the lift down, I took a measurement between the inside of the two columns at the floor. So I know what this distance is supposed to be, or at least I know what it was before, and it was working fine. So I went ahead and anchored this corner, and now I'm just going to try to pull that other end of the leg around. And I'm not sure why it's doing that. I think it's just kind of in a bind because of the way it was assembled. So once we get it squared up and run it up and down a few times, I think it'll find its happy place. Okay, it's in, it's level, and it works. Still a few things to do. These gizmos here are what holds the arms in position, and some of the ears are actually broken off that are supposed to be welded on these cradles. So I'm not sure I'm going to even bother with that right now. And then I did get a couple of extensions here for the pads at the rear. That's for lifting trucks, you know, where the frame goes up over the rear axle. So I just ran in a patch cord here so I could do some testing. And you know, patch cord is electrician jargon for sketchy temporary wiring. So I'll have to get that all finalized, but it does work. Well, to be honest guys, I don't have a whole lot of experience with two-post lifts. Believe it or not, every shop that I've ever worked in had in-ground hoists, and you know, I'm pretty comfortable with them, but this is sort of new territory for me. You've probably figured out from the video of it going up, this hoist is kind of unusual. The crossbar here, this crossbar, it actually goes up with the arms, and I don't know if I've ever seen another type of a hoist that's set up that way. And I think that's probably for a good reason. It's not really that handy. So I don't have enough ceiling height here to go all the way to the full height. It needs about 14.5 feet to go all the way up. And I only have about 12.5 feet. So unfortunately I will not be able to use it at its maximum height, but it's still a whole lot better than working on the ground. And I knew that before I put it up, so it's not a surprise. But like I said in the other videos, I don't plan on being here for a whole lot longer, so when I move I'll have more ceiling height to work with. It won't be an issue. So the other thing that's kind of weird about this, because the crossbar goes up with the arms, the unlatched cable also travels up with the arms. And it's pretty hokey, but it works, and it does pull both latches at the same time. So here's the data plate for this lift, and it's a 9,000 pound capacity, and it's made by Precision Machine Works in Maquoketa, Iowa. That's only about 2 hours from here. And I don't know, one of these numbers is the date, so it's either an 02 or an 01. That's what they told me when I bought it. They were the original owners. So it's 17 years old, something like that. But I think it's got plenty of life left in it. Well, overall, I'm pretty happy with this. I've wanted a lift forever, and I've been actively looking for one for about 2 years now. And they're pretty hard to find on the used market, at least in this area. People really want these things, and that means that the prices are either, in the stratosphere, like to the point where it would be cheaper to buy a new, Chinese-made lift than to buy a decent used lift, or they sell very, very quickly. So there was one for sale, a base plate model that was for sale here in town, and it was sold within the first, 24 hours. So you got to act pretty quickly to get one of these things. And to that end, if this thing doesn't work out for me, I feel pretty confident I can sell it and get my money back out of it because, like I said, people really want these things. Okay, I suppose that's enough. What did we learn? Well, we learned that maybe you should inspect your equipment before you install it, because you never know what kind of dangers might be lurking inside. Pretty glad we caught that one. And we learned that installing a 2-post lift is not too bad of a job. I would say if you're smart enough to be working on cars, you're probably smart enough to install the lift that you're going to use to work on cars. Just my opinion. And we learned that I need more ceiling height in my shop, but I already knew that. So what's going to be next? I'm not really sure. I've got a Ford 6-liter Power Stroke engine that I need to swap out, so I'm not sure how much of that I'm going to film, but probably some of it. So you'll get to see that happen. And then, yeah, there's a few other projects in the pipeline. I have one that I filmed and edited and uploaded, but I decided I needed to blur part of it out because it had some personal information. But the YouTube blurring system doesn't work with Firefox, and it doesn't work with Internet Explorer, so I need to get a real, video editing software to take care of that. Then I picked this up at the store the other day. It's pretty cool. I didn't know that they even sold these anymore. The old Haynes manual. I think this one's actually from, 2004 is the last copyright, so who knows? It could have been sitting on a shelf for 15 years. But they were clearancing out all the old Haynes manuals. Most of them were, about old Toyotas or whatever. Not really interesting, but this one's kind of cool. It covers the old IDI and first generation Power Stroke engines. So I picked it up. Kind of a cool, nostalgic, item. I remember buying a Haynes manual from AutoZone when I was a kid, working on my old 89 F-150. And it did help me a lot. We had a basic wiring diagram that I used a few times and, basic repair information. But I think I read somewhere that one of the original founders of Haynes Publications passed away not too long ago. So anyway, something kind of cool. And then, I don't know, maybe we'll do some tool reviews, or I can do a mini one for you right now. This, not so good. This, Braun Light from Harbor Freight, actually surprisingly good, but don't drop it. So, we'll get there when we get there. Thanks for watching, guys.